welcome to the podcast, the Macaw Podcast Universe. Not Podcast Macaw Universe, the Macaw Podcast Universe. It's hosted by two people.
My name is Jordan.
And my name is Micah. You can call me Momo.
Okay.
And we have a last name that we share.
I bet you can guess what it is.
A union in marriage.
Yeah.
It's Macaw.
Yeah.
And we're last week we went through and we disrupted our Three Colours Trilogy and we talked about Scream 6. But another movie came out this week that we have to talk about because it goes back to another series we've covered, which is the DC Extended Universe. And that is a movie called Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Now, I'm very excited to talk about this movie. We saw it. And Shazam 1 was a movie that I found to be charming and one of the best of the DC movies.
Mm-hmm.
So when I knew they were making another movie with basically the same crew, I was like, heck yeah, sign me up. I'm excited. Where were you at?
Did not care, weirdly enough.
No, I'm talking pre-trailers.
I still was just like, I think I'm done with DCEU as everyone else is. So it's like, if they never made another Shazam, it's like, that's fine. The first one was great. So even prior to seeing the trailer, I was a little bit like, I don't care. I don't know if I've ever communicated that to you.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and this movie is one of those victims of COVID where it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And at one point, it was going to come out. Well, I mean, at one point, Aquaman was going to come out
first.
I don't know if it was first, but like this movie was going to come out, in the fall, I think, and then Aquaman would come out in the winter. And then this slot got changed to, okay, Shazam's going to come out in December, the slot that Aquaman was going to come out. But then they did a smart move, but they were like, let's not even try to compete with Avatar. Yeah. Just move it, push it to March. Mm-hmm. And there was still part of me that the closer we got, I'm like, are they actually going to come out with it, though?
Yeah.
And then couple that with some of the worst trailers, I think, for
pretty bad trailers. It made me very not excited for this movie.
Yeah, it looked like the whole movie took place in one area, which was like a football field and then like a street corner.
Yeah.
Or a street. And that was kind of it. And it was kind of like, is this
I think for me too,
not going to be good?
What contributed to my not caring is I liked the story of the first one a lot, and it's like, I think I'm done. I don't think I need to learn anything more. I don't think I need to see these characters develop.
Yeah.
Anymore. That's a me problem.
Yeah, no, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, so then with seeing this trailer for this movie and they're like kind of establishing what it's going to be about, it's like, I don't know, just not really interested.
Yeah. And it looked a little bit rough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like,
not for me. Helen Mirren's not a draw.
No. So I remember. So there are 3 movies in this next little calendar event where it's like we had to disrupt our series. So we did, Scream, and I bought the tickets like as soon as they came out, and then John Wick 4, which we're covering next week, bought the tickets as soon as they came out. And this movie, I waited a long time to buy tickets. We still got like an early showing of the movie.
Yeah.
But I just was kind of like, whatever. Mm-hmm. We'll see it. We'll figure it out. And I feel like there's just not a lot of buzz about the movie. And I don't want to overstate this, but I do think the change in leadership at Warner Brothers, which is something I am pro and excited about, with James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over.
You mean DC specifically? You said Warner Brothers.
Oh, I meant DC. Yes, yeah. Thank you. And this kind of like thing that I'm still trying to parse out of like what they're doing with the movies and stuff, that all seems like maybe they've complicated it even further with their explanation. Yeah. But maybe not. I don't know. We'll discuss that at a different time. But I just am kind of like, I wonder how many people are kind of like, I don't know, let me just wait till this is like restarted or something.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's not going to do super well. Like,
this movie?
Yeah, it seems like it'll probably make its money back because it's only $100 million budget.
That's it?
Yeah, this is a low budgeted movie for, a superhero movie. So, hopefully it'll make its money back, but it's kind of like, there's just not quite like, you got to go out and see Shazam. And the other one was kind of like a breakout hit.
Yeah.
And you would hope that a sequel would be like a breakout sequel, you know? But it just doesn't feel like the enthusiasm is there.
No, it doesn't.
And so we're going to see where it heads.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still keeping people at bay on what I think about this movie.
Yeah.
But we came across something treacherous when we went and saw this movie. And Jordan, this is where I'd like you to kind of take over for me.
Well, keep in mind all of the stuff that we said, so not very high expectations coming into this movie. So we're there, and when we're in the theater, it's pretty dang loud audience-wise. And this is just the trailer part. And it's like, that doesn't bode well. But Micah and I talked during the trailers. But we're talking about the trailers, and I'm sure people have thought, like, I hope these people shut up by the time the movie starts.
Right.
So it's just like, maybe that'll happen, although it's a lot of teenagers.
Uh-huh.
And then the movie starts, and it seemed to be going that way a little bit.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this movie was pretty dang loud most of the time.
Right.
So it drowned out what was probably the most talkative movie I have ever been in theaters for. It was like there was a big group of teenagers in the row behind us that were on their phones watching TikTok, talking at full volume the whole time. But
when it started, they were kind of talking, but it seemed like they were reacting to the movie.
One of them cheered for the DC logo, which I found weird.
Yeah, so
I'm kind of feeling like that might be the first time someone's ever cheered for the DC logo in the theaters. But it made me was like, oh, cool. Like, they're here to see a DC movie.
Yeah,
they're
okay, cool. Yeah.
But then it felt like everyone, not just that group, because that group was so talkative, it felt like the environment of the theater for everyone else was like, oh, we're all in agreement that we're just going to talk through this movie. Therefore, everybody talked through the movie. And I mean, everybody talked through the movie.
Did the people to the left of you talk?
Not like a little bit, but nothing egregious, very normal stuff. Nothing like the people next to you.
This was wild, folks. I mean, it was genuinely like if you walked in the theater, it sounded like, Wait,
I have to mention too. People were jumping, were in and out of the theater the whole time too. Yeah, people constantly were walking around.
Yeah.
And the same people too, which always kind of puts me on edge.
Oh yeah. It's only because they're teenagers that I'm not so worried.
Yeah.
But no, it was genuinely like people talking at the volume we are talking at now throughout the entire. So anytime it got quiet, there were 2 scenes in the movie where they were delivering exposition and trying to set up the plot and stuff. And I actually couldn't concentrate because people were so loud. Yeah. And I was kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah.
When the movie ended, because here's the thing. And if you have any suggestions, folks, please tell us what we should do. Because this happens anytime we see a PG-13
And you're probably thinking, why don't they just leave the theater, get their money back, and go to a different showing at another time? Honestly, it's not that easy for me to do that. Because prior to this movie, as we mentioned, not excited for this movie. So we're like 20 to 30 minutes in.
I don't want to rewatch that 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it's like I haven't decided if I like this movie yet. Therefore, I don't want to rewatch this if I end up hating this movie. So in a way, I'd rather suffer through what's happening than come another time.
So we'd love to hear suggestions, but one thing that I always think about is, especially in the age range where people talk like that, is it's like, if you are so rude that you will just be on your phone full brightness, I mean, I think it's incredibly rude to be on your phone at all in the theaters. But if you're going to go full brightness, watch videos, take videos, you're not the kind of person that when someone says, hey, could you be quiet? You're going to be like, did you hear this guy say I should be quiet? Ha, this guy sucks. This guy over here, he sucks. And so I always feel like if I shush them or tell them to be quiet, it will make the situation far worse than just suffering through it.
Yeah.
I do, though, kind of feel like maybe one of these, like, cup my hands and go, shut up, would maybe be something worth trying.
Maybe.
Just a bright yell. Because maybe that would get people, like, a little like, what the heck? Or maybe I could try, like, shut up! Something lower that sounds, like, scarier.
Yeah. I think that I'm sure that there were parents there that I just didn't see, but it felt like this experience was all of these parents dropped off all of these teenagers, and a lot of these teenagers were responsible for watching younger siblings, but they were also with their friends, so they were all goofing off the whole time. And whenever this happens, I get mad at the parents.
Yeah.
For just dropping their kids off at a movie at 6:10 on a Thursday because they don't want them to be at home. That like I don't know anyone's situation, but my brain goes there where I'm like, you guys are so irresponsible.
Well, it's also weird to me. I don't know. So this is a larger rant, but if you are listening to this episode, I implore you, unless there is a family emergency happening, there is literally no reason to have your phone on. Just think back only 20 years when people didn't really have phones as much, and we would go to the theaters and it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
2 hours of you being off your phone is not going to end the world, and not answering the text is not going to end the world. Please just turn off your phone. You will actually enjoy the movie more if you do that.
Yeah.
Because it drives me nuts, and it's actually unfathomable to me that someone would think it would be more exciting to scroll on Twitter or TikTok watching a movie.
Micah. It was only TikTok.
Okay, but it's unfathomable to me that would be more exciting to someone than watching even a terrible movie. Yeah. A terrible movie is more exciting than social media.
Yeah.
I would rather watch, you're going to hear it, folks, I'd rather watch any of the Fast and Furious movies in a theater than just scroll through TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So it just drives me nuts, and I've had it up to here with it.
Yeah.
So I think I might yell a shut up next time.
Well, I also think that you and I need to change our strategy on showtimes.
Yes.
You'd think 6:10 on a Thursday on a school night around dinner time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get that many people there. But consistently, that is probably, I'm thinking, the worst time to go. So I'm thinking, but also Mike and I are not night owls, so we don't want to go to a really late showing.
But I think there will be more teenagers at a night showing.
I think there will be too. I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm suggesting we try a completely different theater. Because there is another theater that is like 20 minutes away, not as good as a theater.
No, it's
absolutely not.
Honestly a terrible theater, but
it would be. I know the audience would be better. Yeah. / it would be half of the amount of people.
It is worth trying. The other thing,
especially if we're seeing another movie like this one, we weren't excited for it anyway.
Yeah,
it's like, let's just go there then.
Yeah, the only hope I have when we see a movie like this is I think this will make for good podcasting. That's the only thing that gets me through it.
It's not worth it anymore.
No, it is not. But that's what I like. That's how I stay sane when I'm watching it. Where I'm like, we'll get to tell our listeners, and they will hopefully like laugh and have a good time.
Yeah.
But I am genuinely like getting mad talking about it right now.
I know, me too. It's putting me in a bad mood. All that being said, for having such a terrible time.
Oh, I want to tell them one more thing, though.
Okay.
When the credits ended, because, again, I didn't shush. I always feel like it'll be worse. I turned to Jordan and I started talking really loud because the people next to me, as the movie progressed, started talking more and more. And at the end of the movie, at an emotional sequence, actually, the guy started going. And so when the movie ended, I started talking very loud and actually pointing at them and saying, could you imagine being this rude to other people and just talking through a movie like these people who are sitting next to us? And they got up really fast and went to a different row to watch the credits. And I think they had friends in a different spot.
I think that they had kids. Not that they didn't have kids, but that there were younger people they were looking after.
You think so?
That was what I was feeling.
They looked pretty young.
They did. No, I'm like younger siblings that were also there.
Okay.
But they were like, you guys have to sit in this row though because we want to cuddle and be gross the whole time because they were. And
there was a moment where I was like, where I looked over and the way they were positioned, it wasn't. But I was like, are they about to like get frisky? Because it's like I would have to say something because I'm one chair over and I'd have to be like, you cannot do what you're about to do right next to me. But they weren't. They actually weren't.
Yeah, but it's just like, what is there to talk about during a movie for the whole entire time? Because no one's talking about the movie.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I get it. You don't want to be at home. You want to get out and go somewhere else. with your girlfriend or
Yeah.
something. Just go in your car. Just be in your car.
Just fake that you went to the movie.
Just fake like you went to the movie. Go to Sherry's. It's open 24 hours. Get a pie shake.
Yeah. And
share a pie shake together.
Drink it in your car.
Or just stay in Sherry's. Just don't come near Cinemark.
Yeah. So.
Because that was a big teenage spot for us.
Yeah.
Growing
but
up.
It's so weird because I'm sure there are movies that I was maybe more disruptive, but I don't ever remember, except for the X-Men First Class, which you guys are going to hear about in a couple of weeks. I don't ever remember going to a movie and being like, oh, I'd rather talk.
Yeah.
Or I'd rather be on my phone. And Taylor Brown pointed out, listener of the podcast and friend, she was like, because I Instagrammed about how upset I was when we got home from the movie. And she says the guy who like was so loud during the other guys. And I said, that's different because I was laughing so hard that I couldn't contain myself. I saw a comedy. You know what I mean? Like I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
Because it was the funniest movie I'd seen up to that point. So that's different. Participation in that way is good.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I want to tell any of our listeners who love it is April 13th, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King Extended Edition returns to theaters. So if you want to see that, just know that that's happening, and it'll be out for, I think, a couple of weeks. That's apropos of nothing, which has become one of my new favorite phrases. It's replacing when I used to say minutia all the time.
Mm.
Now, please, you were going to say.
All that being said, having such a terrible time, I will say what I thought now.
Yeah.
The movie was pretty good. And I can't believe that I felt that way being mad the whole time.
We had everything against us, and that's how charming the movie was, folks.
It was good.
I have a big complaint about it, but that's kind of it. I only have like one complaint about the movie, the rest of it. And I've heard people who've been talking about how like the story's not up to snuff and stuff like that, and there's some specific details. And I'm like, I don't know. It's pretty fun.
I think especially because my expectations were so low. It's like whatever people might be saying, like I'm interested to hear what you've been reading, but it's like, I don't know. It's Shazam. Why does it need to be?
Yeah.
I don't think Shazam's like sacred to that many people.
No.
So
no.
It's like not that many people's favorite superhero. So I think they like covered all the quadrants in this movie.
One thing, and I'm thinking about the juxtaposition of two superhero movies have come out this year, big ones. So you have Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Sierra episode, and you have this movie. And I was thinking about this last night. One thing that I really, really liked about this movie is the more we have these superhero movies, the more and more they seem to be forgetting that like there are real people that live in these worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Quantumania, and I do kind of get it. I get the idea, but they're like, hey, we're going to go down so far down, and there's a whole other civilization of alien people. I don't think that that's a bad idea, but it's like there's been so many Marvel movies where there just aren't civilians living in this world.
Well, even in a Guardians movie, which does not take place, and even in our galaxy, they still have civilian stuff happening.
And Quantumania, it did have that, but it was more like warriors and stuff like that.
In defense of that movie, in a way, though, it is like a revolution movie.
Yeah.
In that way. Yes. So that is something to know.
Yeah, but I just think like the consistent, and there are Marvel movies that are not like this, of course. But I think that pretty consistently, like post Joss Whedon, as much as I don't want to give him too much credit, it's like he did have a focus on there are civilians and these heroes are saving people. Like people like you and like me.
Isn't it okay? Sorry.
One more second. And it feels like post that, it's a little bit more like, hey, we just have like only heroes and villains and like like armies that fight.
I know.
Yeah. And again, there are examples, but it's not in the same way that like when you watch Spider-Man, Sam Raimi, there's a definite like, oh, there are New Yorkers here, and he is fighting for the common man. Mm-hmm. And then you think of Spider-Man No Way Home, a movie I love, don't get me wrong, but it's like, how many Spider-Men can we have in this? And it's not really about like we're saving people in a way. We're saving like a kind of blanketed threat.
Yeah.
And what I want to say, and then please take over, is that this movie felt really refreshing in that way because it was like there were civilians everywhere and they were interacting with civilians. And that was like a whole plot in the movie.
Yep.
And it was just like, you know what? I kind of haven't seen this in a little while.
Yep.
And the first movie was good at doing that as well. And so it's like, that's nice.
This is something that I think that we've gone away from in movies. I do agree. I think this movie does a good job with the civilian stuff in a way that hasn't been done in a long time. Mike and I, upon this recording, watched the first half of the Two Towers extended edition this morning.
Yeah.
Because we're gearing up to see Return of the King in theaters.
Yeah.
And something that they do so good in that movie is they're really good at civilian stuff in general, but they give a story arc to a couple of them. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're like story arcs being given to like civilians anywhere. So in Two Towers, you have the boy and girl who have to flee. Like their mother makes them flee.
Yeah.
They get to Rohan safely. There's a lot of implications of all that stuff. Go to Helm's Deep. The son has to become a fighter. So you're
my gosh,
it's always through. It's like they're kind of like our landmark for civilian stuff because we're recognizing them by that point in the movie. And like they get reunited with the mom. I feel like there might even be a shot where we see the girl and the mom in the cave together.
We definitely do.
So like,
and we see him like terrified at Helm's Deep when
he's
like,
and Aragorn has a moment with him where he talks to him about like this is a good sword, but then Aragorn's like all these people are gonna die because these aren't warriors. Yeah. But that there's like an arc to it, and we don't really get that anymore.
Not so much. Not so much. And even in this movie, there's not like an arc for the civilians.
But a tiny bit. Not like Two Towers. Two Towers is a very long movie, so they have the time. I think a lot of it comes down to time.
Yeah.
But like in this movie, they have like it's a comedic little arc thing. Yeah. But when
actually, there is an arc, but we'll go to it.
But when Shazam is waiting for Helen Mirren to show up at the cheesesteak place.
Yeah.
And that guy's like, hey, what are you doing about this? Don't. You're going to figure it out? And he's just being very like no reverence for, we'll get into that. But like, you're going to fix this because you're the superhero?
Yeah.
And then we see that guy later when a lot of stuff has happened and the guy's like, we believe in you, Shazam. Right. And it's like, yeah, that's that guy from earlier.
Well, and this is a very mild spoiler. We'll still have our spoiler alert theme later in this episode, but that is the arc. It's not necessarily like one person arc like in Two Towers. It's like, the civilians went from feeling this way about these heroes to feeling another way by the end.
I think is the secret ingredient to this movie.
I think so. Opinion. I do. And it's just nice. I mean, it's nice to see normal, real people when you're amongst like models.
Yeah, because
you know what I mean?
Now that I'm thinking about it, to think about it and comparing it to No Way Home, which is superhero movie standards, pretty near perfect.
Love it. Yes.
Of a superhero movie. But it is a movie that is a Spider-Man problem.
Yes.
Specifically. And it is a Peter Parker problem, and he kind of did all of this.
Yes.
And by the end of the movie, he has to sacrifice a lot of himself to get it to work. But it's all because it's a him problem. Like you said, we're not really seeing how it's affecting other people.
Yeah.
We're seeing how it's affecting Peter. But, I mean, in defense of that movie, it's about Peter.
Well, and like, again, to keep talking about that, it's like, of the characters in that movie, there's really only two that don't have powers at some point in the movie.
Ned and
Ned gets Doctor Strange powers in the movie.
Oh, yeah, because he gets the ring.
Yeah.
So what, Mary Jane
and Aunt May.
Yeah.
And Happy doesn't.
The women, you mean?
Happy doesn't, but he kind of does because of his association with Iron Man.
Everything.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like Marvel has built a world that's like just permeated with superheroes.
Yeah.
And there's a great video for anyone who's interested. I talk about him all the time, but Patrick Willems did a video called The People in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And he talks about how it's like one of the only superhero movies he can think of, and I can think of, where there are characters that have no superpowers and are civilians and are so memorable. And they're like all over those movies. From like the beginning of Spider-Man 2 when you see Emily Deschanel and she's like, you're late with the pizza, to his pizza boss owner, to like the guy who he owes rent to.
Bones is in Spider-Man 2?
She is, yeah.
Wow.
Like the guy he owns rent to. And then, like, the banker, who's Joel McHale. Like, all these people, and it's not
Joel
like...
Joel McHale? Spider-Man movie? It's been so long since I've seen them. But yeah.
And even, like, in Spider-Man 1, like, the guy's like, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of it. Like, it's just so, like... And I think that is an illustration of why I do believe I love when Spider-Man interacts with other heroes and stuff like that. But I agree with past guest Kevin Hines that like at his best, Spider-Man is best when he is the only hero that exists in his world.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, Spider-Verse, I believe, is the best superhero movie ever made, and that's full of like hundreds of Spider-Men. So
I do think it's worth noting that in the Dark Knight trilogy, they do a lot of civilian stuff.
Yeah,
which is pretty integral because Gotham's like the second person on the call sheet of any Batman movie.
Chicago, you mean?
Well, yeah, which is Gotham is New York.
Yeah,
but
it's just an overlooked detail, and
like
we're
every
mentioning,
movie though, I can like think of a civilian thing because in the first movie you have that kid that's in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
they have a moment with that, like him and another kid that Batman saves, and then in The Dark Knight, I mean, you have civilians on a ship having to make a decision about killing other civilians. That's huge.
Yeah.
And then in Dark Knight Rises, it is more a bad guy situation, but you see like civilians judging other civilians.
Yeah.
And
stuff.
Yeah. So like there's a lot of really interesting non-superhero related things happening throughout the movies that affect Batman.
Well, and it's just I think it's kind of overlooked now. And that's the reason we're harping on it so much is like in this movie, like Philadelphia, as much as my one complaint with this movie is the effects are atrocious. And maybe that's overwork because Marvel.
I don't think the movie just looks very good.
I don't think it looked very good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that had to do with the effects. Like they were like 10 years dated bad. And so go on and turn off your CGI like thinking brain on this because this isn't like a bad superhero bad. This is like one of the worst effects in modern blockbuster I've seen. I mean, it's very bad, but that's my only complaint with the movie. I like everything else. But it feels like Philadelphia is like an actual place.
Yeah.
And when you establish civilians, you see that they actually have something to fight for.
Yes.
And again, going back to Spider-Man No Way Home, it's like he has to figure out how to fix his own problem. And that's a very Spider-Man thing. Yeah. I love that. But it is
that was also the third that was like the third movie in his trilogy too. So
right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, that's like he's not really saving civilians. He is. But it doesn't feel that same way. The whole time you're just like worried about him. And this, it's like they're gonna destroy Philadelphia. And because there's real faces we have, it's like, oh no, they're actually gonna like destroy Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Like M. Night could be gone. We
don't want to live in a world like that.
No, we don't. Unless he comes back and tricks us all.
Well, that's the M. Night twist.
I was thinking that like if I was David F. Sandberg, the director of this movie, I would be like, we have to give M. Night a cameo. He would do it, right?
I feel like he would do it. He seems like he's game.
And
for stuff like that.
Is Mr. Philadelphia.
He likes comics.
Yeah. So it would be pretty cool if he showed up and like, ran from one of the demons or something like that. Or even if he like killed one, like there's a civilian that like kills a demon and you're like, what the heck? But yeah, let's talk about who made this movie.
Yeah.
So I just said it's David F. Sandberg, who has a fun cameo in this movie. It's written by Henry Gayden, who has also done Shazam and Earth to Echo, and There's Someone Inside Your House. But there's also someone else who wrote on this, Jordan, and I'm wondering, did you notice this name? Someone named Chris Morgan is one of the writers on this.
Chris Morgan.
That should set off alarm bells in your head.
Oh, from Fast and Furious.
From Fast and Furious.
Did he put it in the Fast and Furious joke, maybe?
Oh yeah, he probably did. But I think like Henry like wrote it and then he did like the next pass on it.
Okay.
So got to give him credit. Good job. The cinematography is by.
He wrote one really good Fast and Furious movie.
Two. Oh no, one of them wasn't
confusingly
his, right?
good. 5 was confusingly good.
Yeah, but then
I think he was the only writer on it. It was maybe him and another guy.
Yeah, and then I think 7 he didn't write,
and
which is the best
he might
one.
not have written, but maybe he produced or maybe he wasn't involved.
Yeah.
But 5 was perplexing by how good that movie was.
I know.
And I'm just so glad that the new one is going back to 5.
Yeah. hey, there's some random guy that wasn't around in the 5th movie, and he's back for revenge. It's the big finale of Fast and Furious. Okay. The cinematography is by Gayala Pados, who is from Budapest, Hungary. Because I was like, where's that name from? That's cool. And he worked on Maze Runner, The Scorched Trials, Maze Runner, The Death Cure, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
This is who?
This is the cinematographer.
Oh, because the Maze Runner movies look real bad too. They look real bad.
But Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes looks good.
Okay.
Because that's
one of the Reeves one?
I think so. Let us know, folks. Should we do that series ever? Hello?
We're waiting.
That was the last one, and it's directed by Wes Ball. Oh, no, that is one that's coming out in 2024.
Oh, great. So it's not going to look very good.
Yeah, oh, crap. And then we have on the music Christoph Beck, who we talked about when we talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Okay.
Quantumania and Ant-Man and the Wasp. The movie has a $100 million budget, I already mentioned. Yes. So in April of 2019, they were like, all right, full forward. Let's do it. Let's make a sequel. Henry starts writing it. They're getting the same crew together. And Sandberg was like, you know what I'm inspired by is the Simpsons movie. We should have a dome in this.
Awesome. But
yes, please.
I just got to say, the dome thing was so... Oh, it felt so good because we were at a point in superhero movie culture, franchise stuff where they're everywhere. Whatever, Marvel, DC, whatever. There are so many of them.
Domes, you're saying?
No, just like superheroes.
So
each movie is a potential end of the world situation.
Yeah.
Always. But for some reason, we're only getting one superhero or two.
Right.
To actually having to solve the problem. When sometimes, like, this is very nitpicky, but sometimes it's like, shouldn't the Avengers be involved in this one?
Right.
This is like really big. So I'm when they put the dome on the city, I was like, guys, you nailed it. Because now it's only their problem. No one else can help.
It's smart too, because the other thing I don't like I remember when the Eternals trailer came out.
Mm-hmm.
There were all these people talking about how come the Eternals didn't help out with Thanos?
Yeah.
You know, they have to do these big threats. And for me, I'm like, I don't want you to spend precious runtime in a movie explaining why a hero wasn't there.
No.
Like, it's annoying to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, but if you do something like this movie where there's a dome around them, you can have all of that off screen where someone's like, how come Batman never showed up? And you go, well, he couldn't.
Yeah.
I did hear, though, that they were planning on shooting a scene that showed Superman trying to break open the dome, and Batman was just like watching him, like shaking his head or something like that.
I would have been fine with that.
Glad they did not include.
Oh, okay. I think it could have been a little funny, but
yeah.
Just like to see Ben Affleck's confused face in a DC movie.
Yeah. So this movie was really, they start working on the script in 2019. They want to start filming in 2020. Something happened. And so just delay after delay after delay. And then one of their big delays was actually because this movie, Flash, and Aquaman, it was like, we're not going to be able to finish the effects in time. So that was another reason why. I think that's why all of those movies were pushed from last year to this year.
Oh.
Because remember, they were all supposed to come out last year.
Yeah.
And so...
So when does Flash come out?
Flash comes out in June of this year.
And when does Aquaman come out?
December.
Okay.
Yeah. Which will be our triumphant time to finally go back and see Norm. I mean, not Norm. Norm of the North. That's the polar bear.
What?
One person listening to this is like, I remember that commercial for Norm of the North.
What are you
really
about?
bad animated movie.
Oh.
That came out in 2016 or something like that.
And it's a polar bear?
Yeah, but it's really bad animation. Oh. But they really pushed it because I saw a trailer for it in theaters, I believe. You're going for your phone. Yeah. So one thing that was kind of interesting is Rachel Zegler. She's in West Side Story. She's Juliet. or I don't know if that's the name of the character.
But she plays
the Juliet character. And she was going for Supergirl in The Flash. She was like auditioning for that. The role that looks like a plastic action figure in the trailer that they're throwing around in the sky. She tried out for that, but she lost the audition to Sasha Calle. And then she did a Zoom with the director and Dylan Grazer, who plays Freddie Freeman in this.
Mm-hmm. And Dylan Grazer.
Oh, it just says Dylan Grazer on here.
According to IMDb.
Oh, okay. And they did a chemistry test, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, this would work."
Yeah,
and
they drew some of her blood and drew some of his blood, combined both of them under a microscope.
And they did that. They put it on that cool machine that spins really fast
put it
to
on the
mix
cool machine. But then they put on that little glass square that they put under the microscope to see the chemistry between them.
That's funny. And yeah, I guess Grazer was a big reason why she got the role, because he really wanted her and liked her in West Side Story.
He liked her.
No, come on. He liked West Side Story. That's cool.
You can have a crush.
No way.
Let's just put the rumor out there.
And so then they finally last year in May were able to start filming the movie.
Okay.
And what was interesting is the character of, let's see, Mary, the
sister?
older sister in the movie, when she becomes Shazam, it's a different actress. And that actress was like signed on and everything, but then they decided to stick to just Mary and just change her makeup and hair a la like Clark Kent to Superman.
Is it because she's like full grown person?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. Some think that it might be because the other actress, and I just read this on a random article, like showed some support on some of the people who stormed the Capitol.
Oh.
So some people think maybe that was why she got canned.
Uh-huh.
The director just said, like, we just thought we'd approach it that it's like Clark Kent, where it's like...
In the first movie, it was just the actress. So by that time, had they made that... Well, no.
No, she gets Shazammed and she turns into the other actress.
In the first movie?
Yes.
Oh, I think I'm just remembering it
as
being the same actress.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, the director just said, which I'm going to repeat again for the third time, that they went with the Clark Kent to Superman approach.
Yeah.
And some people say, like, well, it's, she's matured, like you're saying, so it makes sense. And yeah, so let's see, what else? They adjusted their schedule. Rizwan Manji, who is the guy at the very beginning of the movie in the museum.
Yeah.
He's in the show Peacemaker as a different character. So James Gunn was like, don't worry, we'll just pretend they're brothers or something like that.
Okay.
Because they just wanted him in it, I guess. And other than that, that's really it.
Okay.
It's just plagued by COVID delays.
How was the movie doing?
Not great.
Oh, it's not great. Okay.
I mean, it's very mixed, and I think since the budget is so small, it could be okay.
Yeah. They should need to dump him at this point.
Well, and that's another thing is like there's a future possibility, I guess, that that I guess if this movie does well, there's potential that they could continue doing Shazam movies. But it seems like if it does the way it's probably going to do, they're not going to do anymore.
If you are looking for a completely new Superman, you should just scrap everything. That's how I feel.
I do kind of feel that way.
Because I think that part of my lackluster feelings towards this, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to feel this way, which is going to affect the box office, is why would I go see this?
Yeah.
They're revamping it all.
Yeah.
I'm curious though if they would make another a new Shazam movie, because I don't know, because I don't read comics. Never heard of Shazam. I think when the first Shazam came out, because I did not see it in theaters, I thought it was a made up thing.
Yeah,
I didn't know that it was DC.
We talked about this.
Well, okay, I'm saying it again.
I know.
So it's like, are they even going to redo it?
Yeah. Well, he is like one of the original guys.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Captain Marvel originally.
Oh, right.
Yeah, very big in the Silver Age of comics.
I like the whole like it's a kid thing too, but
I think
that's how I feel.
So yeah, the impression I'm getting is that basically they would just keep making these DC movies as long as they're profitable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Launch another shared universe kind of thing. But I'm a little unsure. And there is something to be said, which we've talked about on this podcast many times, whereas the Batman came out, And literally, like, no one's concerned about the connectivity of stuff. So on the one hand, it's kind of like, yeah, just make a new Superman. Who cares? Like, make it like comics. You have all these different versions. Who cares?
Of this and this version of that, yeah.
Yeah. One thing also that I want to say before you do actors that's just funny is I can't imagine a world where Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale are excited about their involvement in The Flash at all. And I can tell in the trailers they're cutting to a Batman that's on a motorcycle that looks just like the Dark Knight one, at least in its flashes. And I'm like, they're really trying to trick people into thinking that Christian Bale's in this, and he's definitely not in this movie.
There is no way they could afford him. There's no way.
Yeah, he wouldn't do it.
With how much, I'm sure that movie is so freaking expensive.
Yeah.
And also they got Michael Keaton, which is not cheap.
Yeah.
There is no way that they could afford Christian Bale.
Yeah.
I no.
And I really hope they don't do anything with The Dark Knight, because I just don't want them to touch that stuff.
Yeah.
But they probably will. Because
Yeah,
I think as much as everyone at Warner Brothers every like 3 months is like, man, even though Ezra Miller's in another bunch of trouble and like kidnapped someone or something like that, we're pretty sure this movie's gonna rock. People are gonna love this movie. I'm like, it's not gonna be good.
No.
It's gonna be a bad movie.
No. I think people are starting to have a hard time looking at their face.
Yeah.
So that's the main character of our movie. And there's more than one of them.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, Rachel Zegler plays Anthea.
Yes.
She, like you said, big thing, West Side Story.
Yeah. I mean, she's up and coming,
Yeah, she's up and coming. Definitely a breakout, because also this year she will be in the new Hunger Games movie.
Oh.
And she's going to be, it looks like she will be Snow White in the Disney live action Snow White.
Oh, they already.
Of course they're doing it, Micah. That's coming out in 2024.
That hasn't really bode well for people who are in those movies. No. I don't know why, as an actor, you would sign up for those.
No. Yeah.
I mean, even Emma
Watson.
Emma Watson, it's like she was in that and no one even remembers that movie exists.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not a good move.
And that movie made money, right?
It made so much money. It's crazy.
Did we cover the other superheroes in the last time?
I think we touched on them a little bit. So
then we have Lucy Liu, who plays Calypso.
Yeah.
She is in Kill Bill. We've
talked about her on an old Patreon episode.
That's right. She's one of Charlie's Angels. Chicago.
I like how you enunciated that. She's one of Charlie's Angels?
And she's in a ton of stuff, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
We have covered Helen Mirren.
Yep, because we've talked about Fast and Furious.
And
we've talked about Documentary Now from time to time.
Yeah. Diedrich Bader plays Mr. Geckel, who's the teacher, who is in BoJack and Veep, and very funny guy. Has got a fabulous voice.
Uh-huh.
And then Rizwan Manji plays the guy at the museum.
Yeah.
He's in The Dictator, Charlie Wilson's Sons War, Transformers. He's a comedian.
He's always funny. He just has a funny way of delivering stuff that always makes you smile.
And then lastly, just because we're in a little comedian corner, PJ Byrne is Dr. Dario Bava, who's the pediatrician. Shazam. He is in Big Little Lies. Because Mike and I recently watched that show.
People love hiring him and having him be a
studious person.
Yeah.
Of some, like a white collar person.
Yeah, like teaching children in some regard.
I mean, he's good at it. Anytime he pops up, it's like, that guy's funny. He's also the last podcast on the left guy, right?
Yeah, that's what you've always told me.
Oh, that's what you've always told me.
That's what I've always told you.
So no one take that to heart, because we're probably wrong.
I'll look it up while you do that.
But he's in so many freaking things. Most recently, he's in Babylon. He's been in Wolf of Wall Street, The Boys, and a ton of other stuff.
Wow, that's crazy. He just has one of the wildest careers.
Yeah.
That's what you want as a comedian.
Yeah.
What's his name? Tell me.
Something Byrne with a Y.
Wow, he is definitely not on that show. There's three.
PJ Byrne, Byrne.
Yeah, 100% not there.
Okay, you've told me that for years, man.
I have, and you know what? I'm realizing that I'm pretty sure I was told that by someone when I was watching The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh.
Someone said, "Oh, that guy is Last Podcast on the Left," and he's not. Two of the guys aren't even clickable on Wikipedia. They don't have pictures on Wikipedia.
I want to know who they are.
Yeah, so so sorry and for all the times that we've said that. He's not that.
I'm a little relieved.
Yeah, me too. I don't like. I listened to half an episode of that show and I was like, "This is too much. These guys are kind of gross. I don't like
it. It's too much. Just to put a little corner on it, because I've listened to even less than you have, and it is just such a terrible show that is very popular. A lot of people like it and think it's so funny. They're not
quite as popular as the Macabre Podcast universe.
Oh, not even close. They're very irreverent to absolutely everyone, victims and the people who've committed these terrible crimes.
Yeah.
That's my issue with it, is they denigrate the victims.
Yeah.
So a sweet alternative that people can listen to.
Oh, brother, here we go again.
Small Town Murder, also by two comedians, and they say that this is their thing. They never bash on the victims, and I love it. And you can still get the irreverence if that's what you like.
Having said that, though,
Micah hates me talking about it for some reason.
Well, you've mentioned them so many times on this podcast.
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, you have.
There's no way. No.
At least once other time.
Small Town Murder.
But with Last Podcast on the Left, I really have only listened to half an episode, and it was just too intense for me.
It was so gross.
So maybe they don't bash the victims. I don't know. I don't know if they do or not, because I didn't listen that long. So I don't know. So guys, you're not unwelcome on the show, but you're not welcome on the show, right?
Okay. I have this.
I don't have a problem with them. I really don't.
No. But I do feel like I think that is kind of one of their things, because Small Town Murder kind of sometimes alludes to, like, we're not that other kind of podcast.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
They haven't said something like that in a very long time, but I feel like when I started listening to them, that was kind of like a thing. Ah,
I see. Yeah. I'm just, more than anything, I'm just over, like, the kind of, like, and I Small Town Murder's fine, it's fine, but I'm just kind of over, like, the commodification of taking murder and being like, let's make it funny, or let's, like, basically, like, exploit people who are involved in, like, tragic events. So I'm just over that, and I can't really engage with that anymore. And that's one of the main reasons I can't listen to Small Town Murder, is I just can't do that.
One thing that I love about it so much, though, is they get deep into the court, into, like, the actual court legalities of it all, which I know is very boring to you.
I always
and it's
would
always
like turn it off after that.
Fascinating to me to hear how the defending lawyers are like, not lies, but kind of sometimes just like what they're so desperate to make up something for their client.
And I think my very personal experience, I think podcasts for me need to either be about movies or they need to be funny. I've realized,
like a comedy straight podcast.
Yeah, because I've found that anything that is not those two things, especially something that's like maybe educational or something like that, it's like, oh, I'd rather read a book about like World War II or something like that, because my mind just strays, and podcasts I found are like a great way for me to kind of turn off my brain and have fun. So it's like, if it's not hosted by Scott Aukerman, I'm probably not going to listen to it. So when people recommend stuff that's a little more informational, it's like, it usually just sits downloaded on my phone. And I really am like, I'm going to listen to this. And I just never do, because Scott Aukerman doesn't host it.
Yeah, no, I think at this point for me, because people recommend true crime podcasts to me a lot. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Yeah.
But I at this point don't really listen to any. I don't listen to any other true crime podcasts, and a lot of it comes down to I like their personalities. Yeah, and they're like, I've been listening to them for so long that they're just comforting to me at this point. It's like, I haven't listened to Stuff You Should Know in a really long time. Yeah, but anytime I do, it is just like a breath of fresh air,
warm blanket.
Yeah, just hearing Josh and Chuck talk.
Yeah,
even though sometimes they're talking about the most boring things in the world, and they make it interesting.
Yeah.
So,
and that's me with like Threedom. And I know you feel similar, but like when I listen to Threedom, it's like, okay, like maybe this week wasn't good or something like that. But it's
Threedom
like
came out.
Threedom was good. So it's like it'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know. And hopefully this podcast is that to everyone listening.
Yeah.
So are we ready to get spoiler?
Yeah.
So before we do, let's talk about something fun, which is our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Micah McCaw. And you really should sign up. The bottom tier is $3, and you get an extra podcast every single month. This month we did the Oscars, our predictions, and next month we're doing Glass Onion. And now that includes the entire back catalog, which is, I think, like over 50 episodes now. Maybe not. That would be a lot. But maybe. It's a lot of stuff, and I mean, really, that's less than a cup of coffee. Please sign up. We want to stop working at normal jobs and be podcasters, writers, and musicians full time. And the more people that support us on Patreon, the more time we can dedicate to those things. And next month on Patreon, there's something huge dropping. Huge. But we're going to talk about that another time. Although we've already recorded all those episodes, so I don't know how I'm going to let people know. I might have to include an advertisement next on those episodes, which I think I've already edited. I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, let's get into spoilers.
Spoiler alert! 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 Spoiler alert!
They're at a museum, and
we're at a museum.
We are at a museum, and we see this very cool, setup and all this stuff, and there's all these people. And then these two like Roman-looking guard people walk in, and there's a staff.
I thought it was funny right away.
Yeah,
is when in movies like this are like bad guys or someone like shows up wearing a helmet and then they take it off, never to be put on again in the rest of the movie. I know it's because it's dramatic, but it's like just don't have the helmet on.
Right. But yeah, it's Helen Mirren, it's Lucy Liu, and they take the staff from the first movie that was broken,
and they wreak havoc.
Now, this is when I was like, oh, this movie is, and maybe you'll laugh, we kind of talked about it, but this is a COVID movie. It's about COVID. Because Lucy Liu then whispers into someone's ear something that infects them, and then this whole room is then closed down, and there's this infection that runs around everybody. And then it causes them all to die, and then they get turned into stone. And I was like, and I'm being serious here, I think no pandemic, this movie would have maybe been written a little bit differently with some of this stuff. Because later, it will build to them closing off a city where everyone is, quote, in lockdown. And I'm like, this is like an ultimate COVID movie. It's just very interesting because we talked about this on one of our Insidious episodes, that we were curious what COVID was going to do to artists' writing.
Yeah. And
now it's been long enough, and there's been enough stuff that's been able to be made that we're seeing how writers are dealing with it or not dealing with it. And so it's interesting that this movie, I feel like, is a very stamp of, like, this is a COVID movie to me.
Yeah.
But this first sequence, I was like, this is cool. And it was, because David F. Sandberg is a horror guy. And I was like, okay, he's carrying the horror into this because this is like a freaky scene and like people are dying kind of intensely.
Yeah.
In a way that's not like kiddie.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, we're off to a pretty good start. And then what happens?
Do we cut to Shazam Boy or do we continue with them when they go back home with the staff?
No, I think it's Shazam.
So
is this the bridge scene first? Or no, they're just at the house.
They're at the house. They're all hanging out, the fam.
Yeah.
But we know because of the last movie, all of the kids are superheroes now.
Yeah.
So, Billy and Eugene, I think, are playing video games, but it's like they're practicing.
Yeah.
Combat stuff. And then the other Pedro, I think. Wow, I'm doing great.
Oh, it's actually a cut to the psychiatrist, and then it's a cut to that. But we don't have to go through every single scene. So back to where you're at.
Then we we're just kind of okay. I'm not going to catch up with every kid. We're all caught up with all the kids and what they're doing, and they're a big happy family. They're all superheroes. Not Billy, the other one,
Freddie.
Freddie is listening to the police scanner, hears about a crime, is going to go be a superhero about it. When Billy's like, it can't just be you, it's all of us or none of us. He's trying to like keep it. We're a crew, and Freddie just wants to be a superhero.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's growing up. He's a teenager. He wants some independence. He wants to go figure it out for himself. But Billy gets everyone to come with him.
Yeah.
Before that, at the pediatrician office, as Shazam the superhero, Billy is talking about like how different his life is, how hard of a time he's having. He has abandonment issues, blah, blah, blah. Very funny with PJ Byrne, who was not on last podcast on the left.
But he is one of the comedians on Small Town Murder.
No, he's not. That was a very funny scene. We see the Annabelle doll here that could not be placed more prominently.
Yeah. Which, of course, David F. Sandberg directed one of those movies. So.
Yeah. And yeah, we learn here that the city of Philadelphia, the Shazam crew is called something Fiasco. Like the superhero fiascos or something.
The Philly fiasco.
Philly fiascos. Basically, they're saving people, but they are destroying the city in the process.
Yeah.
And already, it really sparked my interest because at the end of the day, these are children being superheroes. So they are pretty dang irresponsible.
Uh-huh.
They're saving people's lives, but they're not thinking about implications or how it's affecting certain things, or maybe it be affecting other people.
Yeah.
They're just saving lives.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And even when he tells Billy about it, he's just kind of like, oh gosh, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Like no one's really like, guys, we got to be more careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, no, we're reckless.
Yeah.
I like that.
But yeah, there's this whole bridge sequence where this bridge is collapsing and they're saving everybody, and the jokes, like, I guess because I was expecting for this movie not to be good, it's like the jokes are landing. Besides, again, and this will be the last time I say it, the effects, besides the effects, it's like, well, the action like makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm understanding what's going on. The people still have their funny personalities and stuff that they had in the last movie. So I'm like, okay, is this so far we're in the good zone. It's green.
Yeah. And this scene, they are illustrating that they are pretty bad at their job. Good at saving people, bad at the other stuff. So the bridge is collapsing. All of the wires are coming down, and
cables, we call them.
Cables. Eugene is like trying to laser one back together, and it immediately breaks. So it's like they just don't really know. I feel like they don't know their limits necessarily yet.
Yeah.
And I like when Shazam shows up for that one lady who's about to fall into the river. And he catches her just in time, and he's freaks out because he's like, were you actually listening to this song right now? And it's like, I need a hero.
Holding out for a
hero. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of that is good. And then they get back to like their lair, which is the lair from the previous movie where all the, 7 deadly sins got like captured and turned into sculptures. And this was a funny touch where it's like, oh, it's like a kid zone now.
I liked the set. It was cool.
Yeah, and it was also nice because it was like one of the rare sets in this movie.
Yeah.
So it actually looked real and good.
Yeah.
But they have like streamers on these ancient statues, and they have like a TV set up down there and a fridge and like a basketball hoop and stuff like that. And it felt very what that would be.
Yeah.
And Billy's trying to set up, hey, let's study this stuff, let's get better. And the whole time he just doesn't want to be abandoned again because he's about to age out of the foster care system.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily care so much about the superhero aspect.
Yeah.
It's just staying together. I like that the older sister Mary.
Yeah.
So she is she didn't go to college, she still lives at home, but it's almost like this whole superhero thing put a wrench in her plan.
Mm-hmm.
So she is still trying to study. That's like one of her things. I like that Eugene is like mapping every door in the door labyrinth.
Yep.
That was very fun. I kind of wish we had gotten a sequence of them going through doors. But yeah.
I was actually just happy that they did it at all because in the first movie they went through a couple doors.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, oh, that's so cool. We're never going to see these again.
Yeah.
And so just the fact that they kind of showed them.
And it was part of the story.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I was like, oh, that's cool. It was all of the door stuff was very like Harry Potter-y in a fun way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all that's happening. Then we're discovering the Daughters of Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll kind of go out of order here. So don't hold our feet to the fire, please. But this whole Atlas thing, when they're explaining their motive, this is when I was having a hard time paying attention because of the audience.
Yeah.
But their motive is really cool. And I like the villains in this movie.
So let me see if I got it straight.
Yeah.
They, what do they live like in ancient Greece? Like a realm of ancient, like mythological.
It was
Athens
like a god
something?
realm.
Yeah.
It's like Athens,
But
like
it
the
is Greek
real
mythology.
Athens, not the fake Athens that we have. The real
real
Athens,
one.
yeah. Mount Olympus or whatever. That's probably their realm.
So many, many, many years ago, our other wizard dude who gave Billy his powers, is responsible for taking away this realm's magic.
Yes,
because it was getting out of hand. Like they were too powerful.
And I think he wanted to protect the humans from like enslavement and gods being amongst them.
Because that's what it was pretty much happening.
Or was going to happen.
It was going to happen.
That's where people were talking too loud.
Yeah. So he removed the magic from them.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
That is pretty cool. And that's where the staff comes into play. That's why they needed the staff, because it imbues magic.
Yeah.
So they got it back, but they need the wizard who did not die in the first movie.
Yeah.
I guess.
Which I think they did explain, but honestly, I think it was another scene where I was like, can anyone shut up in here?
It didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me either.
Like, whatever. Yeah. I love this actor. He's great.
Yeah.
And he's wearing so much fun makeup.
I know. So, I love his beard and hair.
Because he is some kind of wizard, he's the only one who can put the staff back together, which they force him to do. This I thought was a little funny.
No, this makes sense. It makes sense.
Just let me tell you what I would like.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu touched the staff, their powers came back to them. They're magical again. And it seems Lucy Liu can speak.
Power of chaos. I believe it was.
Yeah, so she's the one.
/COVID.
So power of COVID. Then
you're running with it.
Helen Mirren says that her powers have always been she has power over the elements.
Yes.
Earth, wind, fire, water. To me, that's what it is. Okay?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people would say the same thing.
Yes.
So whenever I hear that, I think cool, we're going to get some cool effects of oh, she's doing fire now. Now she's doing water. Oh, she's making the earth do this thing. I think she can just do anything.
Uh-huh.
And I just don't, I'm not a fan of how she's an elemental magic person. And it just did not feel classically feel like elemental stuff, because all of a sudden it just felt like, oh, so you just have telekinesis, which I know she's moving him with her powers, and it's I guess he's he's biological. He's got water in him.
Yeah, he's got water. We're made of dust.
Yeah, So I mean, I know what I'm saying is nitpicky.
I do what you mean. It's not
that's what I like.
It's not like Avatar: The Last Airbender or something like that.
Which is it's just fun.
Yeah.
More visually fun.
Yeah, right.
But they make him put the staff back together.
Yeah.
Staff is restored. They can continue their plans, which is to go to the human realm and establish dominance.
Yes.
He gets a tiny piece of the staff and uses its magic to find what happened. Right?
Oh, that's what. Okay.
Is that what he was doing?
Yeah, it was a splinter. Okay, that's cool. I didn't realize that. Yeah. Okay. And then they're trying to find the golden apple, from the tree of life.
Yeah.
And this is when I was like, what is this? Is this a Shazam movie, or am I playing Assassin's Creed? Because you look for the golden apple of life.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
all of them?
I don't know. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca.
Not that interested.
but then they want to plant it, which will then restore the power of their realm.
Yeah. But they could do it in their realm. Well, they don't have the apple for a while.
Yeah, they
Well, let's wait till we get there.
Yeah, but so yes, straight as an arrow, my dear.
Okay. So then
because you asked if you got it straight.
Oh. Well,
their motive, and I'm saying straight as an arrow. I've been waiting on that the whole time.
Yeah. So then we cut to school, I think.
Well, okay, hang on though. But I just want to say that it's just kind of interesting. You and I talked about this right when the movie ended, that like we've often in this very podcast complained about superhero movies and stories where they've gotten so bogged down in the exposition. And this is very exposition heavy. Their whole motive. But you said this, and I think I'm inclined to just agree with you straight up that it's just because it's kind of based on our own mythology. It's just kind of like, oh, cool.
Yeah. You know what I love that this movie didn't do?
Yeah.
That superheroes are addicted to doing, especially DC, is cutting at the exposition point to have some really weirdly FX'd explanation of why the bad guys are the way that they are.
Yeah.
And it just rips me. There have been good examples, but I'm at a point where it's just a trope now.
Right.
And I like how in this movie how they did it.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
And now we're in a worst of times situation. But in this movie, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Instead, we learned all that stuff when the kids were in the library.
Yeah.
And looking through old books.
Right.
I really liked that.
Yeah, with Steven, the invisible writing pen.
Well, the pen's not invisible.
Well, yeah, but it's like I couldn't figure out if
the pen is sentient.
It was the pen was sentient.
Yes.
There wasn't like an invisible being.
No.
Okay.
Don't overthink it.
Okay.
I did kind of wish that
it simple, stupid. Kiss.
I did kind of wish that Steven was like a humanoid thing.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming this is a comic book thing.
What would have been great? This is referencing Deadpool 2. Is if the whole movie there's this invisible guy that's drawing it, and then at the end he like turns around and becomes visible, and it's Brad Pitt, and he's like, "You're welcome, guys," and then he turns invisible again. Yeah. So I like their motive. I think it's cool. I was a little apprehensive with Helen Mirren in this movie. I thought she did great.
I thought she did great too. I liked. Well, we'll get into it more, but because we have 3 villains. They're all sisters. We have Anthea, Calypso, and whatever Helen Mirren's name is.
Yeah.
And they all have their own specific motivations.
Yeah. One thing that was kind of unique to me was like, as the movie's going on, we're discovering that the wizard did this thing.
Hespera.
Oh, thank you. That seems like it was potentially unjust, but maybe the right decision.
Yeah.
And so they want to restore their realm. It's like, okay, I'm on board with what they're doing, actually. And then I like how Rachel Zegler and Helen Mirren are both like, yeah, we just want to restore our realm. And at the point when they get the apple in the movie, the impression I got is they were like, okay, we're done. Like, we don't need to see you anymore. We're not worried about this anymore.
Because I guess, so a question I had was, we get to a point where, well, to go through this a little bit, at school, Freddie meets Anne, who is Anthea, but she's disguised as a high school student.
Yeah.
I don't really know why. But they have chemistry because they did the whole thing in the lab.
Yeah, callback.
It's a love interest thing.
What is this last podcast on the left with all your callbacks?
Okay. Cut to them on the roof having a Spider-Man No Way Home moment.
I did think of that, yeah. I was actually thinking, even though No Way Home is not like the prettiest movie in the world, I was like, man, it looked so much better in No Way Home.
Yeah. This movie looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
They're up there.
I would recommend people see it, though. I liked it. It's good.
This movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Freddie turns into his Shazam self, played by Adam Brody, who, and then the other sisters show up, and they immediately take his powers away with the staff.
Yeah.
But
which was interesting and cool.
Very interesting. Later on, though, when they're confronted by the other Shazam people, they don't take away their powers. Is that because they don't need to? They do attempt to?
But they're dodging them.
Do they need to take their powers back? Or is it like you guys are just children, you're not worthy of these powers?
I think it's more
like it's our magic, not yours.
Yeah, I think it's like, come on, this is our thing.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. But so back to my point that I was making was that I thought it was unique that had Helen Mirren and Rachel had the apple, they would have just been like, okay, peace out. Done. End of story. And we're not going to bother you anymore. We don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Lucy Liu who's like, no, they're not really the villains. I am, because I want revenge on this planet. Mm-hmm. And that's like 2/3 of the way through the movie. She's like, no, I want this apple and I want to plant it here and destroy this realm because I'm so mad about it.
Mhm.
And I just thought that was cool and interesting that like the three, because you knew from the get go like Athena or Anthea, like she's gonna turn. You knew that like the moment she was on screen.
Yeah.
And when she's like, I have an overbearing sister, you're like, okay, so she's one of the guardians or whatever. Cool. Or the daughters of Atlas, I mean. Like, and she's going to help them in the last scene. But I didn't expect, like, Helen Mirren to help out.
No.
And I would think that she's, like, the oldest, that she'd be the one that wants to do something.
I would think so, too.
So I just thought the whole villain stuff and their whole story and motives and stuff was just very, very cool and interesting.
Yeah.
And it was very fun.
Yeah.
The other thing about this movie that I think I just could, maybe I'm pushing up against an argument that no one has yet, but I feel like you could look at this movie and go, it's just like nonstop action and it's boring and annoying. You know, it's just superheroes hitting each other. But I felt like very intentionally, this movie felt like kind of more of an adventure movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like we're looking for these weird mystical things and it's nonstop action because it's designed that way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the first movie was more like coming of age stuff.
Yeah.
And this is like, no, this is like we have to go do this thing and go out into the world and do this thing. And so I think that kind of sets it apart from the first movie in a way that I found appealing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I
So
think we're done here.
Done here? Yeah.
So
there's a couple times where they fight with the Daughters of Atlas.
So they take away Freddy's powers, and then he
Yes.
becomes a prisoner of them, right?
Yeah.
They take him back to their realm, where
Right.
he is imprisoned with the wizard.
Yes.
And then while that's happening, all the other kids are trying to learn about what's happening because they're basically going to be hunted.
Yeah.
That's when we find out the secret library. I thought all that, the design was cool and fun.
Yeah.
I like how it's still very cavernous. We meet Steven, the writing pen, and they learn like all the stuff we just said. And then very funny that, you know, they on this enchanted parchment, they can write a letter to these sisters.
Right.
And start a correspondence on like, let's get this figured out. And so then we cut back to Freddy and the Wizard. Freddy is being interrogated
Yeah.
because they need to know where his siblings are, what their names are. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. So they do need to know them. And they get interrupted with the letter that shows up from the kids. And the dictation is very funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, because they're doing things like the letter is actually saying, tell the Daughters of Atlas. Well, actually, don't use that phrase. Put a period there and then an exclamation, and all that stuff is just included.
Yeah.
So that was very funny.
Yeah.
We also found out that Shazam stands for like Wisdom of Solomon.
Oh, yeah. Power of Mercury.
Yeah, Power of Achilles.
Power of Zeus.
Yeah, and so it spells Shazam, which I love that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
Then there was Power of Johnny Appleseed. That was the second A. Love of Micah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, very, very nice. And then the hat of Superman,
Anyway.
which means good hair. Shazam, hat.
Okay.
So they write this letter and they basically say, we'll give you the staff if you give us Freddy, right? No, they don't have the staff. What do they say that they'll give them? Oh, I think they just say, give us Freddy or we're going to have to like take you on.
I think so.
And so that's when they do the Philly cheesesteak, right?
Yeah.
Where they meet and he
And
does
the dome has been dropped by this point.
Yes. And Stephen King was like, there they go, copying
Typical.
me. Although his Under the Dome came out post Simpsons, so who's inspiring
But he's
who?
tried writing it a very, very long time ago.
Yeah. Well, it's not I mean, putting a dome on a town is not an original idea.
No, everything he does is original.
But yeah, and so he has, the thing that everyone saw in the trailer where he's like, the one thing I know about Fast and Furious is it's all about family. And then no one shows up.
Mhm.
And again, for the record, if you have not listened to our Fast and Furious episodes, go listen to them and note how little those movies are actually about family. It feels like the world discovered that they were about family before the movies did. And now they're like, well, these have always been about
Every
family.
movie ends in a barbecue. No.
Well, 3 of them do, I think. But at least they got Rita Moreno for the next one. That'll be fun. Or 80 for Brady Love.
She's Dom's mom, right?
I hope so.
I think so.
She's got to be, right?
I restored your dad's car because you probably wrecked it in another movie.
I hope that you know what I hope happens in Fast 10, because I thought 80 for Brady was very charming. We went as a joke, and it turned out to be a genuinely good movie.
Yeah, it was fun.
I hope that this happens. They're all gearing up. Jason Momoa's there and stuff, and then Rita Moreno like flies in on a car, and then she like has like Sally Field, and she has Lily Tomlin, and then I'm forgetting the other actress.
Me too.
And then they just turn right on a freeway when they should have turned left, and they're headed toward Boston, and they go watch another Patriots game, and we just follow them the rest of the movie. How about that?
Great.
Oh, please have that happen. But anyway, at least give her a moment in the movie where she has to drive a car fast, because she's quite old, and that would be awesome.
Well, I'm sure there will be something where something happens about driving, and someone says something about like, oh man, that's crazy that he could do that, Dom, like whatever thing he did. And she's like, well, who do you think taught him how to drive? I'm sure that's a lie.
Yeah. Have you noticed that in the trailer when they do the drag racing, that Jason Momoa's hair, have you looked at like the hair he has in that drag racing scene?
No, I've only seen the trailer like once.
Oh my gosh. It is.
Well, she's recently shaved his head or something.
Oh, he has
for an upcoming thing. So I don't know what the timeline is.
They give him like an updo kind of thing with like all this different like
he
material.
might still have his hair when they shot this.
Yeah.
But I think he's recently cut his hair.
It is like maybe the worst hair I've ever seen in a movie, potentially. And we're talking about the same year that we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Okay, so here we go. Fast 10 those seatbelts. So the movie's going along. We're back at Shazam, and they have a pretty decent fight. Good humor. I do like that they do get the upper hand, or at least, well, actually, no, they don't, because it's part of the plan. They capture Helen Mirren. She then steals the apple and escapes their prison. And that's when they're like, hey, you know what? We're just going to go. Like, we're not concerned about it. And then, is that when they drop the dome, or they've already dropped the dome?
They've already dropped the dome by that point.
You said that. You said that. Now, have they got Freddy back by then?
No, because Freddy...
No, he's still up there.
Anthea, like, saves Freddy and the wizard from the pit and the dragon. And they're in the labyrinth. And she's like, go these ways, and you'll go to this door, and you'll go back to your realm. They get to that door, and then Helen Mirren comes out first with the apple.
And she has the power of Axis, which, that is cool.
What does that mean?
She can change like the axis of the
Anthea.
world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when I was watching that, every time she used her power, that was very cool. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, that was interesting.
So then they escape. No, they're about to, and then they see the apple, and they're like, oh crap, we got to get that. They grab it, but then they make too much noise. And are we already at like the end? Am I missing something? I feel like I'm missing a whole like sequence or something.
They're unsuccessful in their attempt. So then I feel like I just can't remember why they come. Then the ladies come back to their realm.
Because Lucy Liu's like, we're gonna plant this in their realm.
Yeah, and then they go to the Phillies baseball field and do it.
Yeah.
By that time, she like kills Helen Mirren, stabs her, and then Anthea runs away. But she does, before that, Lucy Liu does take away her powers with the staff.
And that was cool that she tries to shoot her, and she changes the whole axis, and the shot was really cool. And then she stops, and the bolt like still gets to her. And then she doesn't have the power. And then now it's like just a half hour of like
chaos.
This tree is blossoming, and then there's all these like a minotaur, a troll, cyclops, and then these
all
weird
of your Greek
demon
mythological
things.
Demons and monsters come to life and are wreaking havoc on Philadelphia.
Love their design.
Yeah, while the effects are not great in this movie, I love that we got monsters again.
I think they spent more time on them because they looked good.
The unicorns looked really good.
Yeah. And so
So around this time.
But one thing that I thought was interesting, and I think it's a budgetary thing, but it was like there's 3 different types of monsters, and it's all just the same design.
Yeah.
And it's not like an orc, say, where it's like no 2 orcs look the same.
Yeah.
And I was a little like, that's a little shoddy, is what it felt like. Like these, it's like there's the troll type, there's the demon
vampire looking thing,
and then there's the minotaur. And I was like, huh, they all look exactly the same. And I think that's just a budgetary thing.
Yeah.
But it didn't bug me. I thought it was worth noting, though.
Okay. I don't think I really noticed that, but
yeah. It's so unusual to see that.
Yeah, that's true.
Unless it's like a horde of like
the same thing.
The same exact thing, which happens far too often. But
yeah.
One of the demon bat things, the director of the movie is running, and it picks him up and throws him into the air, and he falls and like splats somewhere. And that was pretty funny. Love when a director gets himself killed in a movie. It's just always like cool. And then the main crew, they have talked to their parents now and told their parents that we're superheroes. A quite funny sequence. Mm-hmm. And I do like how I really like these foster parents in both movies, how they're very much like they're so non-judgmental and they're so go with the flow that their reaction when they tell them they're superheroes is not like, well, we need to talk about this, we need to figure it out. They're like, all right, cool, let's get in the battle wagon. And it's like, you're calling it a battle wagon? Yeah, I thought it'd be more the like spirit.
They're comparing the reactions to, because in that same scene, Pedro says, I'm gay. And everyone's like, oh yeah, we know, buddy.
Right.
It's like their reaction's the same to them saying they're superheroes. I feel like that was almost the point.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. And I like how I was hoping we would see them Shazammed.
Yeah.
At some point in the movie, because there was that point where they were like, you guys ready to be Shazammed? And the dad's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought we were going to get that, and that would have been fun, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But then, battle action sequence, craziness.
I love this. So, the Billy needs to go do a certain thing.
Yeah.
Freddy's off trying to get Anthea.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the crew are like, well, what can we do to help people?
Yeah.
And how do you defeat these monsters? Steven answers, the beasts of beasts. Like is what they fear most. And it's like, well, okay, well, what's that? The unicorn. And the littlest girl is so excited by that. And I love that the wizard's like, no. Like, you guys have a certain concept of unicorns. They're actually like the most terrifying beasts ever, and they hate humans.
Yeah.
But they have to try anyway. So
now, I've seen people complain about this next thing, which I think is absolutely bonkers.
The Skittles
and you're a little too cynical if this is where you're going with it. People are like, "Oh, this is just an advertisement for Skittles," and I'm like, "No, I don't."
I think that
I think
Skittles,
if one of our favorite movies is E.T., we're allowed to have another
Skittles
candy
has
movie.
Been going on Taste the Rainbow for freaking years.
Yes.
Give them a little bit of a payoff, okay?
I think
literally their slogan.
I laughed pretty hard at this part.
Yeah.
So
they
going.
find where a unicorn is being born, and it's running after them.
I was a little confused that they established that they needed to find a unicorn, and then there just was one.
Well, I like that. Yeah, because we have these other monsters here. These are the only ones we're seeing.
There's nothing
so
to
I
suggest
guess
there's
it's
a
logical
unicorn.
to assume that there are unicorns here. Yeah, that didn't really make sense.
There was like a missing page. It felt like
there was. Whatever though, we got the unicorns. The little girl throws up Skittles into the air, and
it looks mean, and it's gonna like hit him.
Yeah, and it eats the Skittles, and she says, "Taste the rainbow." And it works, and all the unicorns are like, "We love you!"
Yeah.
And the unicorns look so cool.
Yeah, and they start chasing and killing all of the animals, goring them.
Yeah,
and then this cute small little girl says, "Taste the rainbow, motherfucker!" And then it like cuts with like one of them like screaming or something, and I'm like, I mean, if you don't like that, I'm sorry. That's just fun.
Yeah.
Like maybe you need to calm it a little bit if you don't think that that's funny and you think that's just an ad for Skittles. That's a good moment.
And like they did establish Skittles early on in the movie.
They did.
Because the little girl put Skittles in the pockets of her older sister, which stained her jeans, and she was super pissed. And she's like, "Oh, I thought you could use some. You might like it." It's just so innocent. It's great.
Yeah.
Great payoff.
And I like how she was never once scared of them. She's just like, okay. And they're like, I don't know. This is a bad idea. Yeah. She's like, So they're helping, again, they're helping the civilians. And then Shazam, he's fighting Lucy Liu and the dragon.
So Freddy catches up to Anthea. Lucy Liu catches up to Anthea and is going to kill her. Freddy is trying. I mean, there's nothing he can do but just like.
And it's cool that the dragon has that like thing that makes them stop in their tracks and stare at it.
I like that. That's cool. But Freddy's there basically to die with her because he can't save her. But that's when Shazam shows up and saves them, and they're trying to figure out what they can actually do.
Yeah. And then there's something that alerts him to it's like a battery.
Well, yeah.
And if the tree is like overcharged, then like the tree and the staff would be destroyed.
Okay, I missed that part because of all the talking.
Yeah. I think it was the tree specifically. Oh, okay. And so I liked this too. He lures and he goes to Helen Mirren and he's like, "Can I ask a favor?" And he does. We don't see what it is. And then there's a sequence where they go into the Phillies stadium. And Helen Mirren brings the bubble down to just around the stadium.
I wonder what element the dome is.
Good point. And then he starts just like creating a thunderstorm in there and like charging things up. And he's like charging up the staff with like the breath of the dragon. And all of this looked cool.
Yeah. It was really dark.
The stark contrast of like the flashing lights with like the darkness, I thought was really great.
It was a little too dark, but yeah,
that's funny because I didn't feel that way for once.
Whenever there was like there wasn't lightning stuff going on, it's like I don't know what's happening.
Oh, that felt less of like the Netflix low light bad lighting, and that felt more like we really want the lightning to crack. And
well, it did.
Yeah. So, and he's like charging up the bubble. And then he eventually like gets it to hit a tree and everything explodes.
So to go back to our COVID thing.
Yeah.
The dome was covering all of Philadelphia. Helen Mirren shrinks the dome very small because people have been all staying within their own bubbles. And the bubble is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller because people are being responsible. And then we just have 2 people left battling COVID. I mean, our superhero battling.
And you know what he does? He injects a staff that's charged with something into a tree.
Some would call it a vaccine. What have you.
It explodes and COVID's not an issue.
Yeah.
See, it works. It works. It's there. So yeah, all of that happens.
But it uses up all of his life force. So he sacrifices himself.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, whoa. I was... And you know, I'm thinking also in my head, like, they're probably not going to make more of these movies.
That's what I thought too.
So I'm like, he died.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah.
And it felt earned, and I liked it, and everyone's really upset. So then they're like, well, we're going to bury him like a god. So they take him up to that realm, the god realm, and they bury him. And then we hear... And there's been a Wonder Woman bit throughout the movie.
He fantasizes about Wonder Woman,
which
is very funny. But yeah, they say
it was
something...
funny when he has a dream that he's having dinner with Wonder Woman, and the camera is specifically not showing her face. And there was someone above us because of all the stupid people that were at our showing, and they were like, "Why are they not showing her face?"
So dumb, every last one of them. But in this scene, they. So he's dead, and basically, doesn't someone say like, you know, there's no way to bring him back, and it's like, well, there's like no more gods left.
Yeah,
and then
she's
that's
like,
when Wonder Woman
there
shows
is
up.
one more.
Yeah,
and then she's
the daughter of Zeus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I think that's what she says because when guys, she brings him back to life.
Yeah.
And then
brings the staff back to life.
And the staff. And he says to her, like, I know your dad's Zeus. I have Zeus's powers, but I feel like that doesn't really mean we're related. So maybe we could go out sometime.
I'm 18 in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
That's funny. What's wild, and I had seen a screen cap of this, but they had released a trailer for Shazam 2 like last week or the week before, and it had a shot of Wonder Woman in this last scene.
Like Gal Gadot.
Yeah, and I believe it was a shot that showed Shazam behind her in the you know that how it's composed?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you were watching the movie and you remember that, you'd be like, well, he's definitely not dead.
I don't understand that at all.
Well, I think that the movie has had so low pre-sales, they're like, let's throw in another thing.
Yeah, that's probably
to get people to come. But I know the director was like tweeting about like, that kind of sucks for the people who would have fun being surprised by that.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I thought, oh, maybe that was a misdirect, and like the Wonder Woman scene was the restaurant scene.
Yeah.
Or I didn't notice that Shazam was in the shot, so I was like, maybe she'll show up at the end.
Yeah.
But I didn't notice. So I still kind of thought maybe he really is dead. So then when she...
Good for you.
But when she showed up, I mean, I'm like, okay, she'll probably bring him back to life. Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad I didn't tell you about that, because like a week ago, remember, I was like, something
you
weird
kind of learned
came
a
out.
weird spoiler thing, and I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
But back to life. Family is a family again. United.
Yeah.
Kids get their powers back.
Yeah.
Wizard is going to hang out in their world for a while.
Yeah. I liked that. That was fun. It kind of ended with him, and he's like, I'm going to turn into dust and be gone. And they're like, really? And he's like, no, I want to check out your world. It seems cool. I got an Uber waiting. I'll see you guys later.
He looks awesome in his
I know.
outfit.
I know. And then there's a couple post-credit scenes.
Yeah.
One was like two of the Suicide Squad people coming to
James Gunn's wife and the other guy.
James Gunn's son, we'll say.
Okay.
We'll make that up and say that.
They're like definitely the same age.
Yeah. They go because they're recruiting Billy Batson, and it is pretty funny because they're like, okay, we want you to join the Justice. And he's like, absolutely, I am in. And they're like, okay, great. So you'll be in the Justice Society. And he's like, is that the same as the Justice League? And they're like, no, because there's two different words.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like,
but are they the same thing?
no, they're different. They are different.
So what's the Justice Society?
I think it's the one. I think the Justice Society was the one that was in Black Adam that had Hawkman and all that stuff.
I'm not interested.
Yeah. But anyway, and that was
then
funny.
He's looking up synonyms on his phone.
He's like, you could just use a different word.
Oh, Avengers team or something.
That one seems... I like that one for some reason that it cuts. And then the very last credit scene was, upon reflection, because at first I was like kind of annoyed by it, but upon reflection, I'm like, okay, that kind of rocks.
I thought it was funny.
It has Mark Strong again, the villain from the first movie, and the caterpillar comes to him again. And
wait, but this is so in the first Shazam at the end of the movie, we get him in his cell with the caterpillar, and they're it's very ominous and very foreshadowing of what's to happen. It stands to reason that once that scene was over and the caterpillar left him, this next time we're seeing the caterpillar is how long it took him to leave and come back and talk to him again. Yeah. So nothing's happened.
Yeah. And then he's like, I got plans. And he's like, okay, what are there? Tell me. And he's like, just one more thing. And then he inches away.
Yeah, he's like, it took me 2 years to just go and get this information. I'm a caterpillar. I don't have legs. But who voices the caterpillar?
I think the director does.
It's so funny.
I believe. Yeah. Double check it while I say this part. At first I was just kind of annoyed because it's like, I can't tell if they're trying to like continue to build this universe or not. But upon reflection, it's like they basically had a mid-credit scene that's just a joke.
Yeah, the director.
Okay, cool. They just had one that's just a joke. And then they had one that's also like a joke that's, and I think I saw someone else say this too. It's like both these credit scenes are almost making fun of credit scenes.
Yeah.
And so, like, thinking about it in that view, I'm like, yeah, these credit scenes kind of rock.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
So, that's it. Shazam.
We've been Shazammed.
And next week, you better load up your weapons, folks, because we are going with John Wick, 2 hours and 49 minutes of John Wick Chapter 4. And then you can finally hear the wonderful ending to the Three Colours Trilogy in 2 weeks. But thank you for listening. Please rate, please review, please subscribe, and please show other people the podcast. Mm-hmm. And upon doing that, also, anyone you know, even if they don't want to listen, just get them subscribed and give us 5 stars. Take their phone, ask if you can do it, with all your friends, all your family, because I'm sure the nice small group we have, I'm sure at least 5 people you can grab their phone and give us 5 stars.
Well, it's what did it used to be called? Your family plan? Your 5?
Yeah,
top 5?
Yeah, your top 5. Just grab everybody's phone, rate, review, write a tiny, it doesn't even have to be a long review, just throw in 5 words or whatever. Say, I did this on my mom's phone. I did this on my dad's phone. Maybe your kids have phones, just like I said a few episodes ago, or actually I think in the future, this is how we win.